Let's now start to think about some of the other important issues in key account management, which, like our value discussion, create the foundations of the subject and which are going to underpin the ideas we'll be developing throughout this whole program. You'll almost certainly be familiar with most of these issues, so there won't be many surprises in this unit, but it's not so much the issue itself that I want to highlight than the implications of the issues. In other words, what does it mean? What does this issue really mean, and what should you be doing about it? To help this thinking, I'll raise a number of points, a number of questions as we progress. I don't want you to try and answer these questions with instant answers, because I really do want you to think about them individually and then with your colleagues. And I don't want you to dismiss these key points as obvious because you've heard them all before. Instead, I want us to recognize the implications of these seemingly obvious points and then the questions they raise. And coming up with answers to these questions, this is going to lie at the heart of successful account management. And so we'll be returning to many of these questions later to help you develop robust answers as we progress through the Key Account Academy modules. For example, we all know that we need to move the conversation beyond price and towards value, but how do we do this? Well, right now, I just want to remind you of the basics and to get some of these core ideas back in the front of your mind. So we'll start with the importance of defining long-term business growth potential with the customer as the route to achieving your corporate objectives. To help us think about this, we'll ask ourselves the most basic question, and that is, what is it that you're trying to achieve? And why should you even care about key accounts or key account management? What are you and your company trying to achieve? Well, most companies want to make a profit, of course. And at the same time, most companies also want to grow. So profitable growth is normally the aim. And this is almost certainly what your CEO will be telling your shareholders. Now, that's obvious, right? But the implication is that if we are to generate long-term profitable growth, then we can't defend existing business or win new account business by cutting the price or giving away volume discounts without accompanying efficiency savings, because this will lead to growth, sure, but not profitable growth. And of course, you have constraints. You have to operate within a market, compete against other companies, many of which are going to look a bit like your company. You have to meet complex customer needs, and all this with limited resources, time, people, money, and so on. Generally, there'll be more potential growth opportunities than you've got resources available, and so you have to prioritize. You can't do everything. You have to allocate your precious resources with care to get the best return for your investment. So it should almost go without saying that you, in order to achieve your corporate objectives by focusing your attention on your most important customers. That is obvious, I'm sure you're thinking, but some managers, well, they've forgotten this and they spend a lot of time, a lot of management time, focusing on internal issues rather than the customer. And then they're surprised when their resulting business growth with these key accounts is so poor. So customer focus is going to become one of our critical themes, and we'll examine this in much more detail in the customer knowledge series. Now, of course, customers come in all shapes and sizes. Not all customers are equal, and so we have to treat different customers differently. Few customers offer much greater opportunity for us than others, and these we know as our key or perhaps our strategic accounts. All companies have key accounts, but they don't always have the right key accounts, or more commonly devote the right amount of time and resources to them. So another important implication, that you really need to be sure that you're working with the right accounts and that you're really devoting the right level of time and attention to their development. So the question to ask is not who are your key accounts, but rather who should your key accounts be? Who should you be working with to achieve the corporate objectives and justify your market positioning? Then you have to allocate the right level of resource to the level of development of these chosen key accounts. And again, this sounds obvious, yet many companies and managers just don't pay sufficient attention and energy, or certainly not put sufficient energy into their most important customers. And just to make the point here, here's a graph of customers' share and time allocation from a division of a large, well-known corporation. So here we can see that 13% of the customers account for 62% of the revenue and 66% of the profit contribution, yet only get 28% of the time from the external sales team. But conversely, 2/3 of the customers only generate 15% of the revenue, and yet they receive nearly half the outside sales time and 2/3 of the inside sales team. Managers in this company see the high growth potential with a few customers, yet they complain that they don't have enough time to invest. So imagine what incremental growth this company could achieve if it switched more resources to supporting its high growth potential customers. Now, how do you know which customers should be your most important customers, and what's the right level of resource to allocate? Well, the answer is that we identify the actual business we have with the customer right now and the potential for long-term profitable growth. Those customers with whom we have high sales and or perhaps a high opportunity for future growth, well, they become our most important customers. This idea of long-term measurable potential is therefore really important. So what does all this mean so far? Well, it means the key questions for you to ask yourself are, how can I describe in detail the growth potential with this customer, and can I present a growth plan to show exactly how I'll achieve this growth over the next 24 months? Does my plan clearly show why I'll win this business without reducing price? Is my plan based on the longer term strategic requirement of the customer, not the short term operational needs? And does my plan make sense? Is it clear why I can be sure that the customer will agree with my plan? So these are just some of the critical questions that the successful account manager should be able to answer. And we'll be thinking how to answer them as we progress through this program. All the issues, growth strategy, customer depth knowledge, pricing and value, we're going to consider in detail as you work through the modules in this Key Account Academy. So I'm going to leave you now to think about these ideas, to make some notes in your workbook, and then to prepare for your team session.